All right. Hello, and welcome everyone to today's video where I'm going to be talking about, is comparison really the thief of joy? And if not, why does everyone say that it is? Why are we constantly being told that we need to stop comparing ourselves to other people? Is it actually a helpful thing to stop comparing ourselves to other people? Why do we compare ourselves to other people? And yeah, I just feel like this is something that really needs to be talked about because it is such a popular concept in the self-help and spirituality world, and because it is just another one of those things that can very easily turn into something where we just feel bad about ourselves. Like there's this other thing we're doing wrong, we're comparing ourselves to other people, we're robbing ourselves of our joy, and we're just doing it for no reason, and we need the next self-help, self-improvement, spirituality course or book or seminar or tool to help us stop doing this other shitty thing that we do, which is comparing ourselves. Okay, so again, this is why the Mystery School is a 3-year-long program, because the self-help and the spirituality and the personal growth worlds have created a situation where basically we live in a world where if you're getting into self-help, spirituality, and personal growth, you want to find a way of making yourself feel better in your life. That is why you're doing it, right? Like, all of us come to spirituality, self-help, personal growth because we want to feel better. We know that life hurts, something is going wrong, we don't feel good enough, life feels inadequate, we feel inadequate, we're experiencing negative emotions, we're experiencing negative situations in our lives, we're struggling with our work, we're struggling with our bodies, we're struggling with our relationships, whatever it is. And we come to this work looking for tools to help us feel better. That is the entire reason we're doing this, right? Like, nobody comes, I don't really think there are very many people who come to spirituality, self-help, personal growth because their lives are just like amazing and everything's flowing perfectly and they feel good and it's just something they want to pursue, right? Like it's usually coming from a place of feeling like we're lacking something, or feeling like there's something missing, or feeling like there's pain somewhere, or like we're not experiencing the life we want to be experiencing. And then we get into self-help, personal growth, spirituality, and it seems like pretty much everywhere we look and everywhere we turn and every modality we're going to take on is there to tell us that our pain is our fault. That on some level, we are the reason we don't feel good. On some level, we are the reason we don't have what we want. On some level, we are the block to our own happiness. And this can be, under the guise of many religions, which tell us that we have some inherent flaw within our being, within our makeup, that separates us from God, or that separates us from understanding, or that separates us from enlightenment, and we have to fix that in ourselves. We get into spirituality, other forms of spirituality, and again, it's all about getting rid of our ego, or getting rid of our negative emotions, or getting rid of our negative thoughts, and just thinking if we could improve ourselves in that way, we would feel better. We get into self-help and we think, okay, well, it's because I'm not reaching my potential, it's because I'm not doing as much as I could be doing, it's because I'm not expressing myself enough, it's because I'm not achieving enough, it's because I'm not doing enough. And even we can get into, like trauma work or therapy or all of these things, and again, it's still just like, I'm unhappy because I haven't healed enough, I haven't processed enough, I haven't done enough therapy, I haven't done enough talking, I haven't done enough feeling my feelings so that I can feel better. And again, there's kind of like this continual underlying message, two messages. Number one being that, again, if you are experiencing pain or unhappiness or struggle in your life in any way, that's a sign that you need to do more work, right? That there's still something wrong with you, that there's still something missing in you, that you're still doing something wrong that you need to fix. And the second thing is that transcendence is possible, that we can get to a place in life where we literally no longer suffer anymore, where we don't feel negative emotions, where we don't have any more pain, and we can manifest these perfect realities for ourselves, and that is what we should be aiming for, and that is what is going to make us happy. And so, like I say, the reason that the mystery school is 3 years long is because it's a complete deprogramming from this idea, and then a reprogramming to the idea that, number one, we are humans who are always going to have pain. There is never going to be a time in our lives where we have transcended everything, where we no longer experience struggle or suffering or confusion or loss or not knowing what we're supposed to be doing, that life is always going to happen. And that does not mean that we can't feel good. That does not mean that we cannot have happiness. That does not mean that we can't have satisfaction and fulfillment along the way. And the second thing that I'm trying to really teach is that the way to find a happy life is not in getting rid of all the things that cause us pain. Okay? We can do that. We can absolutely work towards a life where we have less pain, a life where we are good at problem solving, where we are good at identifying what is causing me pain, how to adjust things so that I can feel better, and that we can get to a place where we understand ourselves and we understand life enough that we don't struggle with the things we used to struggle with all the time, right? Like, we can get to a place where we have peace with our bodies in a way that we've never had before, and we don't go back to the dieting yo-yo, and we don't go back to the constant nitpicking of every little piece of our bodies, and we find kind of like an abiding peace with our bodies. We can get to a place where we have processed how to communicate and how to be in relationship enough that we don't have the same fights that we always used to have with our partner over and over again, that we don't get into the same codependent relationships and repeat those patterns over and over again, where we really do establish a healthier way of being, and then we are that way now moving forward. We can absolutely find, ways of work where we just don't suffer the way we used to in our old career, where there might still be days where things are hard and it's challenging and we're not totally passionate and in love with it, but we have a stability that really works for us, or we have a good enough career that we're not struggling the way we used to struggle. That is possible, okay? We can absolutely make permanent strides in our lives that we're not in our same patterns. But at the same time, this path is about understanding how to support ourselves through the inevitable challenges that are still going to arise for the rest of our lives. We are getting off of this path of trying to perfect life, and usually trying to perfect ourselves, getting ourselves to this place where we are no longer feeling negative emotions, or no longer having sickness, or no longer having any relationship issues, or whatever it is. Yeah? Thinking that if we just perfect ourselves, if we just do what we need to do so that we can be perfect, that life will then be perfect. That we think we can get to a place where we're only going to manifest positive experiences, and all negative experiences will be gone because we've cleared our minds enough, and we've woken up enough, and we've cleared our bodies and all these things. We get rid of that, right? Like, we let go of that, because that does not make us happy. Okay, like, that is the point, is that this constant striving to get to a perfect life where pain no longer exists by trying to perfect ourselves is what keeps us trapped in the fix-it path and leaves us never feeling good enough, never actually able to experience the good things that exist in our lives, and constantly feeling like when something goes wrong in life, when there is pain, when there is struggle, it makes us feel like we're doing something wrong. It makes us feel like we're failing. It makes us feel like we're not spiritual enough, or we're not personal growth enough, or we didn't do it enough. And that is false. That is not a reality. And that, again, is what I'm saying, is why the mystery school is such a long deconditioning process, more than it is anything. Because it's designed to help you connect with the capacity to problem solve where you can problem solve, to support yourself in your life the way you can support yourself, and then to be able to have skills and tools and methods of being able to work through the hard stuff that is inevitably going to happen. We stop fighting to get to a place where life is always perfect, and we start to say, okay, life is not ever going to be perfect, so what kind of tools do I need to help me get through the times when life is really tough and when things are hard? And how do I get out of this idea of blaming and shaming and guilting myself every single time there's something hard, or I haven't transcended something, or I have a negative emotion or a negative experience? And again, we learn these tools and these techniques of self-support so that we can actually get through these hard times. We can learn what we need to learn from them. We can get the wisdom we need to get from them. But we also aren't going to blame ourselves. And we're not going to be constantly in a state of feeling like we failed every single time something hard happens. Because that's really what the self-improvement path does, is it convinces us that every single time life is hard or a challenge comes up or whatever it is, that we're failing, that we're not taking enough responsibility, that we're not striving enough, that we haven't evolved enough. And that is false. That is not reality. We are not in complete control of our circumstances. We are not the reason that everything is happening to us. And this overtaking of responsibility and the over-blaming and the over-shaming and the overseeing our behavior and our thoughts and our feeling as the cause of everything. Again, this is something we talk about in the school a lot, is a childhood program. That's the childhood program that we all learned in that temporary codependent relationship we had with our caregivers, where we thought that they were perfect and they had access to everything, and the only reason we thought we would ever be in pain and not be given what we wanted was because we were not living up to the expectation of our caregivers, who could have given us everything if we were just good enough. Okay? So much of the self-help and the self-improvement world is centered around that childhood idea that if we do all the right things, the universe or God or life or whatever, which is now the perfected caregiver that we're projecting out onto whatever we're projecting, will give us a perfect reality. And that then, again, right, we constantly think anytime we're not in a perfect reality, I'm doing something wrong. I'm failing. I suck. I'm broken. I'm wrong. I'm bad. What do I need to do to fix myself so that I can have a better experience? And so much of the time, that's just not the cause, and it's not the solution. Okay, so that's what I'm saying. That's why the mystery school is what it is. That's why I make a video every single week, because this is complex, nuanced stuff that takes a really long time for most of us to deprogram and then reprogram. Okay, and so this concept that comparison is the thief of joy, that if we could just stop comparing ourselves to other people and stop comparing our day-to-day with everyone else's highlight reel, that we would then be happy, that we could get rid of how much we feel not good enough, and we feel shame, and we feel guilt, and we feel all of these feelings of inadequacy, that if we could just stop comparing ourselves, we can get rid of these feelings. Again, it's a massive oversimplification. It's not understanding why we compare ourselves. It's not understanding the positive intention in the comparison. And it's a self-improvement modality that leads nowhere. Because here's my news flash for you. You are going to spend the rest of your life comparing yourself to other people. You are going to spend the rest of your life comparing yourself to other people. There is no way of getting to a place in your human life where you never again look at someone else and think, I'm doing better than them, or I'm doing worse than them. Okay? Comparison is baked in to the human experience. Comparison is baked in to the human experience. So first things first is to understand that the people who are selling you this idea that if you could just stop comparing yourself to other people, you would be happy, are going to have a never-ending source of revenue in terms of being able to sell you courses and books and meditations and spiritual healings and da-da-da-da-da to stop you from comparing yourself to other people so that you can finally have joy. Because the reality is, again, you will never stop comparing yourself, and therefore you're always going to feel like you need a healing modality, you need a book, you need a course. And this is why so many of the spirituality, self-help, personal growth people talk about this, right? So many of them, how many times in the self-help and the spirituality, personal growth world have you heard, comparison is the thief of joy? Comparison is the thief of joy. Comparison. They all parrot it over and over and over again. And it's such a superficial understanding. Okay, so why do we do it? Why do we compare ourselves to other people? Is it just because we want to feel shitty? Is it just because we really want to feel like we're bad and we're wrong and we're failing and we're not doing good enough? Is it really just some self-sabotaging thing inside of us that's there for no reason other than to make us feel miserable that we need to just, stop doing? Just read the book or do the program or take the seminar and you will be healed from this bad part of you. No. Right? Newsflash. Every single part of you is good. Everything that you do has a positive intention. No matter how painful it is, no matter how harmful it is, it doesn't mean you're going to keep all of your harmful behaviors. It doesn't mean you're going to never change. It means that the more we can understand why we are doing what we are doing, the more we can have true compassion and true awareness of the positive intention behind every single one of our behaviors, including the self-sabotaging ones, including the painful ones, including the coping ones, the more we're going to be able to support ourselves in finding new behaviors that get the same needs met, that help us achieve the same intention with less damage, that help us understand why we got programmed to do the things that we do, so that we can have compassion for ourselves and understanding that, again, nothing we're doing is just inherently self-sabotaging because we want to sabotage ourselves. Everything that we're doing is an attempt at finding safety in the environments usually that we grew up in the environment that our bodies learned was reality, and this is what I have to do to be loved and approved of and safe in my reality, and therefore this is what I'm going to do. These are my adaptations. Your body, your mind, before you even had cognition, was programming in. These are the things that are acceptable to my caregivers. These are the things I must do and I must be in order to be acceptable to my caregivers. These are the things I must not do and must not be in order to be acceptable to my caregivers. And that was being mixed in with our needs and our wants and our desires and what we actually felt and what we were actually experiencing, and where the wires got crossed on those two things, right? What was good for getting acceptance but didn't feel good to us, and what was bad for getting acceptance but did feel good to us, all of a sudden became existential threats and confusion, and we learned how to meet our needs in shadowed ways. And we did all of this, okay? We did all of this within the context of comparison. We learned from the very, very, very beginning of our lives that one of the best strategies for figuring out how to get our needs met, for figuring out how to be safe, for figuring out what we needed to do and what we needed to be in order to be approved of and in order to be loved and accepted by those who had authority over us, who provided us with everything that we needed in order to survive, that were our ticket out of suffering, was to compare ourselves to their behavior, was to compare ourselves to the people, to anyone else around us that was getting more love and more acceptance and more approval than us, to compare our behavior to that, to compare our way of life to that, so that we could change if we weren't getting what we wanted and what we needed in order to have better results. We grew up learning how to operate via modeling the behavior of our caregivers, via modeling the behavior of older siblings and friends and other authority figures that were getting love and acceptance and approval. To compare ourselves to other people was literally how we learned how to be. It's how we learned what to do. It's how we learned everything that we have learned, pretty much in terms of our behavior, especially for the first 7 to 13 years of our lives, was through comparison. Do we get this? Comparison is how we figured out who and what to be in order to be safe in our lives, in order to get our needs met. They always say, right? Children learn so much more by watching what you do than they do listening to what you say. Children are comparing their behavior to your behavior. Children are comparing themselves to everyone around them in order to figure out what is the best way to be, what is the right thing to do, how do I get my needs met. That is how we learned. That's not just what we learned, right? The behaviors that we do, our patterns, our ways of being, that's what we learned. But deeper than that is how we learned. We learned to be who and what we are via comparison. Okay? So every self-help, spirituality, and personal growth person who tells you that one day you're going to be able to stop comparing yourself to others, it makes no sense. Because that is like a primary pattern. That's a primary function of being a human being, is to compare ourselves to others. Because again, we are not individuals who were, as children even, right, especially not as children, learning to just say, okay, this is who I am, this is what I need, this is how I work, and this is reality, right? This is how I get food, this is how I get shelter, this is how I get clothing, this is how I express myself, and I'm just figuring out how to be myself within reality. No. We grew up within a community. We grew up within a family. We grew up in structures of other people where fitting into the group, fitting into the culture, fitting into the family was the most important thing we could possibly do to get our needs met, to be safe. Okay? That, again, primary program. To fit in is to be safe. How else are you going to figure out if you're fitting in other than to be comparing yourself to others? How else are you going to figure out if what you're doing is the right or the wrong thing other than via comparing yourself to everyone around you? How are you going to figure out how to get better results, how to get your needs met better, how to get more love, more acceptance, more approval, which, again, in the temporary codependent reality of our childhoods, was the best way to get our needs met, other than through comparing your behavior to everyone else's behavior. Okay? We grew up in community. We grew up understanding that our needs getting met was not an individual thing. It was not just about us figuring out what we wanted and what we needed and going out and getting that, because we didn't have the cognitive capacity to do that. We didn't have the physical capacity to do that. As children, we were dependent on others providing for us. And they did that via approving of us, understanding us, and then doing that. And it was our job, from our perspective, to be what they needed us to be, what they approved of, so that they would give us what we wanted and take away what we didn't want. And the way we did that was by comparing our behavior to their behavior and trying to match it as much as we could. Okay. So now as adults, when we get on social media, when we get on, watching TV, watching celebrities, whatever it is that we're doing, we look at our friends, we look at our family, and we automatically start comparing ourselves. Is my body like theirs? Why do they have this job? Should I be doing this? Should I be doing what they're doing? Should I be eating what they're eating? Should I be doing the, relationship course that they're doing? Should I maybe be changing the way that I communicate, the way that they do it? Why are we doing that? Because we just want to rob ourselves of joy? That's what it is? We all just want to get on social media and feel like shit about ourselves? No! We do that because usually we already don't feel good enough. Okay? This idea that all of us are just walking around feeling amazing and totally satisfied with ourselves and high self-esteem, high vibes, everything's great, and then we get on social media, or then we see our friend, or then we go on looking at TV or whatever it is that we're looking at, and we see someone who apparently has something better than us, and that's when we start feeling like shit? No. Right? Most of us already feel inadequate. Most of us already walk around feeling not good enough and not safe and like we're doing something wrong. And that is because, like I said, as I've talked about at the beginning of this video, but just a lot, we live in a culture, we live in a world that is fully and completely dependent on us feeling like shit about ourselves in order to continue to sell us shit we don't need, in order to keep us distracted and in these loops of societal patterns that do not work for most people, but that work for the owners of corporations who want exponential growth in their bottom line. Our rugged individualism, our constantly changing trends, our horrible working conditions, lack of, just especially in Western countries, lack of healthcare, lack of social safety nets, lack of all of these things that we have more than enough capital, obviously, when we have millionaires and billionaires, to provide a reasonable quality of life for everyone who's participating in society. And we don't. That is for a reason, right? Because it keeps us in a state of constantly feeling insecure, of constantly feeling scared, of constantly feeling like we're not going to have our needs met, of not feeling like of actually not having our needs met, of actually being antagonized, of feeling like we're going to be antagonized, feeling like we're not on trend, whatever. Because then we constantly feel like we're going to be kicked out, like we're going to be left out, like we're going to be left behind, like we're not going to be accepted, we're not going to be approved of, we're not good enough. We constantly are told that our pain and any lack that we have in life is because of us. It's because we're not making the right choices. It's because we're not doing the right things. It's because we're not working hard enough. And this is what keeps society going the way that it is going. If we were all to wake up one day and say, I'm good enough, our economy would collapse. And we need to realize that. This is why I believe that the self-love path is so incredibly radical. Again, why the mystery school is 3 years long? Because we're completely deprogramming from what culture has told us is the way to see reality, is the path to happiness. If we were all to say, I'm good enough, I don't need to keep up with trends, I don't need to keep leveling up in my career, I don't need to keep trying to fix my body and make it more beautiful and make it younger and make it all these things, I don't need to keep leveling up my relationships, this can be good enough. If we were all to do that, how many industries would lose their capacity to continue to have greater and greater profits every single quarter? How many billionaires would lose their billionaire status if they couldn't convince us to keep buying a whole new wardrobe every season? If they couldn't convince us that it is okay that people work a full day and earn less than a living wage in a society where there is more than enough money for everyone to have a living wage. If we could stop being convinced that certain jobs are high value and certain jobs are low value, and we could say, well, if we want the service, right? If we want someone to work at the fast food counter, we want that service. That person who does that, even though, yes, they didn't have to go to university to get that job, it is something that pretty much anyone who's able-bodied enough could learn to do. They still deserve to have a life, a reasonable way of life, a reasonable quality of life for doing that service. Because I wouldn't want them to not do that. Because I want fast food, or I want janitors. I want people who maintain the structure of our, infrastructure. All of these people that we said, well, that's low level wage. That's an indoctrination. You see what I'm saying? This comparison, again, it is something we do because we have been taught how to do that. We've been taught that the way to figure out why we are in pain and what we need to do to get out of pain is to compare ourselves to other people who have either authority over us or who appear to be getting the results that we want to be getting. Because we learned to learn through imitation. That is why we compare ourselves to other people. When we are in pain, when we want something, when we don't know what we're doing, we were trained in the very, very early stages of our lives. That comparison is how we figure out what's wrong and what we need to change so that we can get better results. Remember, like I said, we didn't have that one-to-one connection with reality. We weren't saying, okay, I'm hungry and that's why my stomach hurts, so I just need to figure out how to get food. We weren't saying, I'm feeling like I would really like a hug, or I would really like some more attention, or I would really like... We learned, okay, what do I have to do and what hoops do I have to jump through to perform so that I will be empathed and loved and given the attention that I want. We learned how to figure out why we were in pain and what to do about that pain via comparing ourselves to others, via comparing ourselves to the behavior of others, via comparing ourselves to whether we're fitting in or not. And now we're just doing it on a global scale. Now we're just doing it societally. We're just learning to compare ourselves to more people as we expand our sphere of people who we look to as our generalized other, as Martha Beck talks about, right? Are they getting the results that I want? How do I be more like them? Because that's how we learn to learn. Okay? That is why we compare ourselves. Because again, it's how we learned to learn. It's how we learned that this was the method of getting out of pain and getting into pleasure. Compare yourself to those around you and do what they're doing to try to get their results. Because again, right, we are now in this time where, especially on social media, and even with like celebrity culture and stuff like this, there's more and more and more of these real shares, right? Like you can get on social media now and scroll and see everyone, selfieing themselves crying after a fight, so that you can see that they don't have a perfect relationship any more than you do. You can get on social media and listen to so many people talk about how they were rich or how they were successful in their career, or they had the car, they had the relationships, they had the money, they had the whatever, and they were still miserable, right? Like all of us have heard that story a gabillion times. How many celebrities have we watched who we looked and we said, wow, they have everything. Their life must be perfect. They are beautiful, they are rich, they get to travel, they get to do all these fun things, their life is creative, all this stuff, and then they unalive themselves. Or they die an early death, or they come out and say, I'm miserable, I don't actually like this isn't satisfying. How much are we now able to see into the non-highlight reels of people's lives? And yet we still feel shitty about ourselves. We still feel not good enough. We still feel like we're not doing enough, and we're not pursuing enough, and we're not achieving enough. If comparison was the thief of joy, would it not be that now that we're seeing that everyone's life sucks a lot of the time, shouldn't we all be feeling better? But the truth is that we don't. Because again, we're not getting to the root of what's really happening, which is, again, that we learned deep in our nervous systems that when we are in pain, we are doing something wrong. We are not behaving properly. We are not living up to expectation on some level. We are failing to be what we should be. And then spirituality, self-help, and personal growth have taken that childhood imprint and turned it into philosophy. You don't have the right vibes. You're not having the right positive focus. You're not taking enough responsibility for your life. You're not working hard enough. This complete individualism of if you are in pain, it is because you are doing something wrong, is a childhood program that has been turned into capitalism and how our society functions. So we are still continually taught that if you are in pain, it is because of you. And the solution to that is to look to the people who don't have pain, to figure out how you can make yourself better so that you can improve yourself, and that is what will take your pain away. We are not comparing, and that is what is causing us our pain. We are comparing because we're already in pain, and we're looking for what the solution to that pain is via comparing ourselves to other people who seem to have what we want. This is why seeing that a whole bunch of other people are struggling the way that we're struggling, it can be helpful to a degree, but it doesn't make it all better, because that still doesn't take our pain away. To know that other people are also suffering, or to know that other people don't have the perfect lives that we thought that they do, generally doesn't take the pressure off. Because again, why do we want that perfect life? Why do we want what we think other people have? Because we think it's going to make us happy to have that. Because we think it's going to take our pain away to have that. We think that if we can just do and be what they are doing, we will have the life that they are living, and then we won't be in pain anymore. And that, again, comes from this bottom line that most of us were never given tools to work through the hard things of life. We were only ever taught how to avoid, how to try to get around, how to try to fix, how to try to sweep under the rug and don't look at and don't talk about the hard shit. We were almost all taught that happiness comes from avoiding or from perfecting ourselves. We weren't taught how to actually do conflict resolution in our relationships, right? Most of us were never taught how to truly figure out what we want, how to truly learn how to listen to somebody else, how to negotiate, how to find a way that works for both people. We were taught codependency, we were taught how to run away, we were taught how to avoid problems at all costs, we were taught how to never talk about what's actually bothering us. Yeah? How to try to perfect our behavior in whatever way our family did conflict resolution. Do we avoid it? Do we run away from it? Do we explode with rage and expect everyone to just follow along with what we're doing? And then we just learned how to do that, and we do that over and over and over again. And then we wonder why we're in pain, because we don't know how to do real conflict resolution. When our bodies are sick, most of us never learned how to read a symptom, how to find an actual expert who can help us, because those do exist. We never learned how to support our health in the ways that we can. We never learned how to stop blaming ourselves for stuff that isn't our fault. And so again, we have health issues. Do we ignore them? Do we look for someone to rescue us? Do we try and nitpick and perfect our diets when really that's not what's going on? Because we don't have tools for actually figuring out what our bodies want and what our bodies actually need, and how to support them the best we can within the reality that we live in, which sometimes means we're not going to be healthy and we're not going to be perfect, and that's not our fault. You see what I'm saying here? We never learned how to figure out a way of working. And most of the time for a lot of us, it is because in our culture it is impossible to work enough to have our needs met, to work in a field that maybe we enjoy or that is interesting to us without overdoing it, and in a way that gives us safety. We don't have that. We have the rich people who are constantly feeling like they have to level up and do more and be more and whatever, because it's never enough, never enough, never enough, never enough. And we have the people who are not getting their needs met, constantly being told that the reason that is true is because you're lazy or you're not working hard enough or you're not doing enough, when really it's our capitalist, individualist society that is pretty much set up to fuck all of us out of our humanity, so that we will continue to sacrifice our humanity to this system that demands that we're constantly in a state of production or consumption. We never learned, okay, wait, what? Why are we doing labor? What is the point of labor? To get needs met, to support life. When labor goes beyond that, it is not productive. When labor starts to destroy our environment, it is not productive. When labor causes us to have people who are billionaires and then people who literally work a full day and don't make a living wage, we are no longer being productive. We have completely backwards value systems in our culture. But we are taught, again, that the way to find happiness is to compare yourself to what the rich people are doing and to do what they're doing. Okay? And then people who are wealthy, generally speaking, are the ones who tend to parade their lifestyle as this is what you should be doing. You should be eating like me, you should be working like me, you should be living your life like me, because then you're going to have all these luxuries that I have. And that is going to be the thing that makes you feel better. And then we look at them and think, okay, that must be the reason why I feel terrible, because I don't have the things that they have. And if I could just do what they did, I would have the things that they have. Okay, so this brings me to my last point, which is, again, we are all going to compare ourselves to other people forever, because that's how we learned to figure out why we're in pain and what we need to do to get out of it. That is why we compare ourselves. So number one thing is we have to have compassion for ourselves, that we're comparing for a reason. We learned how to figure out what the right way to do things was through comparing ourselves. So now that we're adults and we have more autonomy than we did as children, now that we're adults and the situation that we were in where we were completely dependent on other people approving of us in order to provide for us is no longer how it is. We still have to take into account that we live in a society, that we live as a collective, that we are not just individuals completely in control of our own lives that have nothing to do with anyone else. We are always going to be interdependent with everyone else that we live in society with. However, we have a little bit more autonomy now as adults than we did as children. So we want to start to look at where we are comparing ourselves to other people. And the first thing that we want to say is, okay, what am I thinking is going to happen if I become like them? If I were to do what they did, or again, what is it about what they have that I think would make me happy? What is it about what they're experiencing that I think would take my pain away or give me the pleasure that I want? And is that actually true? We do have to just start to critically think about the way we're comparing ourselves to other people. Right? So number one is, why am I comparing myself to someone else in that? Where is my pain, and what do I think they have that I don't have, or that they're doing that I'm not doing, or that they don't have that I do have, that would make me feel better? And we just want to look at it. That's not a right or a wrong thing, because sometimes it is true. Sometimes we can say, no, really, if I had the thing that they had, I would be happier. And we have to make room for that. We have to make room that sometimes when we compare ourselves to other people, it is because we really would be happier if we had their situation. And we have to make that okay. We have to learn that, again, not all of us were given the same opportunities. Not all of us were given the same circumstances, right? Like, there are days where I compare myself to able-bodied people, and I just wish I could be like them. I wish I didn't have chronic illness. I would be happier if my body was not in constant pain, if it functioned. And there are days where that comparison means that I just need to grieve. Because this, again, is part of the real, true reality of comparison. Is sometimes we are going to compare ourselves to others, and we're just going to be sad that we don't have what they have, that we didn't have the opportunities that they have, that it hurts to be us and it would be better to be them. And that's part of the self-love path, is learning how to embrace our emotions when our emotions come up. Okay, now, second thing. When we are comparing ourselves to other people, and it really is making us feel like we're failing and we're doing bad and we're doing wrong, the next thing is to fairly compare yourself to someone else. Meaning, don't just look at the surface level and say, well, right, they have this thing, they've done this thing, they're in this place, and I could have that too, and I just suck that I don't. We want to be able to say, okay, I'm going to take a step back, and this person who I'm comparing myself to, I'm going to look at their actual conditions versus my actual conditions. If we're going to compare ourselves to other people, we have to fairly compare ourselves to other people. So we're all going to compare. So let's compare fairly. Do you have the same resources that they have? Were you given the same opportunities that they were given? Do you have the same capacities that they have? The same tools? The same support? The same foundation? The same resources? The same privilege? And if not, it's time to say, it is not my fault that I am not where they are. It is not because I am failing that they have what they have and I have what I have. We have to start giving ourselves credit for what we have done with what we have, which might be very different than what other people have. Right? Like, there are days and times where I look at my career and I just think, man, so many people out there have such bigger followings, and they're doing way more exciting things, and they're getting invited on podcasts, and they're doing all this stuff, and like, why isn't all that happening for me? And I have to remember, a lot of the time, right, I didn't have the money that people had. I didn't get to go to university. I don't have the same able body as everyone else. I'm socially weird and awkward because I'm autistic, right? Like, to compare myself to people who had a better, easier time than me to build up their career, I have to compare fairly. Have I made the progress that I could make, given my circumstances? Not given their circumstances. Okay, so when we are comparing ourselves to other people, number one, let yourself grieve. Let yourself be upset. Let yourself be jealous and envious. That's okay. That's a part of being human. Second thing, compare fairly. Really, really ask yourself how these other people got to where they are, and whether or not you actually could, and whether or not it actually would make you happy. Because that's the next thing, is to really get honest with, like, okay, even if I had that thing, even if I didn't have what I had, whatever, would it make it better? Would it solve my problem? Is that why I am in pain? Okay? And then the last thing is, again, we need to be very, very conscious and aware of our society and the constant manufactured discontent. So many of us never feel safe and never feel good enough and never feel like we're going to be okay because culture is set up that way. We either are actually in a place where we can't make ends meet and where life is really hard and unreasonable because society is so individualistic that basically you have to be rich in order to be okay. And if you're not, you're going to struggle because there's very little to no safety net. And even without that, right? Like, that, just the number of ways that we are vulnerable as human beings, with our health, with our relationships, with the weather, with the changing landscape of everything, work. We live in a world where we're constantly being triggered into fear. And then even if we have enough, even if we are safe, a lot of us experience trauma and we're being triggered and we don't realize it. And we're hypervigilant, or we're scared, or we're depressed because we have so much built up stuff that we never learned how to process because it was normal. And or, again, we might have enough, we might actually be okay, but culture is constantly telling us, well, are you on the next trend? Are you doing the next thing? The economy could crash at any moment. Are you prepared? Are you ready? Do you have enough? Are you sure? So we're constantly being triggered into that state of fear. We're constantly being triggered into that state of feeling unsafe and feeling not okay. And again, right, we learned in our childhoods that the way to deal with that is to compare. When we feel that sense of shame or guilt or blame or not enough or fear, most of us are going to be automatically triggered into comparing, because that was the solution to our pain when we were learning how life worked in our childhoods. Comparing ourselves to everyone around us was the only way to figure out what we needed to do and what we needed to be to get ourselves into safety. We compare when we don't feel good enough. We compare when we feel scared. We compare when we feel shitty. It's not something that's making us feel that way. It's how we're coping with feeling that way. Because again, I guarantee you, if you're in a place where you're flying high and you're really loving life and you're feeling safe and secure, you can be around people who have things that you don't have, and you can see other people's success, and you can have all that, and it's not going to be as triggering. Or maybe it won't be triggering at all. You might be able to compare yourself to others and be like, yeah, no, they're doing better than me. But if you're feeling relatively okay already, you're feeling relatively safe already, it's probably not going to trigger you into a state of depression or anger or envy or sadness or self-hate. You're feeling that way when you look at other people because you already felt that way. And comparison, again, is how you're trying to solve that feeling. It's an attempt at a solution. We compare because we learned that when I'm in pain, I need to study what other people are doing to try to get myself to match that. And then a lot of the time, right, we don't think it all the way through, we don't follow it all the way through, and so we just look at other people and we think, well, I can't do that, or I can't be that, or what's wrong with me that I can't work as hard as them, or whatever, instead of being like, well, okay, my circumstances are very different than theirs. Even if I were to do exactly everything that they are doing, I'm not going to get the results that they're getting. We don't follow it all the way through. What do I think doing what they are doing or having what they are having would give me that I don't have right now? And that needs to be an honest assessment, because sometimes, again, the answer is it really would make you happier to have what that other person had. It really would make your life better to have their opportunities. And again, we need to learn how to process that. We need to learn how to be compassionate with ourselves on that. We need to learn to say, okay, yeah, I'm comparing because it really would be better if I had their circumstance. Okay, that's exactly what I'm going through on my healing journey. Yeah, sometimes we need to acknowledge that we didn't have everything we needed, that we weren't safe, that we aren't in a situation where we have everything we want and everything we need right now, that even if we did everything perfectly in this moment, we still would be in a painful situation. And we need to validate that, and we need to make that okay, that we feel that way. We don't need to make the circumstances okay. We make it okay that we feel that way. And again, right, like we need to really understand that a lot of us came through situations where we are and we're suffering the way we're suffering because of what we experienced, not because of our bad choices. That's the big thing we got to break ourselves out of. None of us arrived in our adulthoods with complete awareness of how everything works and then just chose to fuck up our lives. Ever. Everything you are doing is your best attempt at getting your needs met. Everything you are doing is what you are doing to adapt to the circumstances you were raised in and the circumstances you're currently in, doing the best you can to meet your needs within your understanding, within your trauma, within your programming. And the self-love journey, the 3-year mystery school, right, is all about where was your programming incorrect? Where were you taught things that are not actually true? How do we start to come into the adult perspective where being approved of and being loved isn't the solution to everything? How do we learn how to really problem solve? How do we learn how to figure out what we really want and what we really need? And how that might be different from what we were taught was right. And then how do we actually do that? Because that's going to scare the shit out of our nervous systems, right? Like this path is long and challenging. But it's worth it because, again, it helps us get to a place where we're not just constantly comparing and feeling like we're failing and feeling like the reason we are in pain is because we are not doing something right. We compare for a reason. So really ask yourself, why am I comparing? What solutions am I looking for as I'm comparing myself to other people? Do I actually have the same circumstances as other people? Where is my pain and what do I actually need? That's what we can ask ourselves when we're comparing ourselves. Where am I hurting and what do I actually need to support myself right now? Is what I'm looking to other people to find the answer for really here? Does this person actually have the answer? Could I follow them and figure out how to get what I want and what I need, or are my circumstances just very different than this person? You gotta keep bringing it back to just where's the pain? How can you have compassion for that? What solutions are you looking for? How are you trying to help yourself with your comparison? And how can you support yourself in that? Because we're all going to compare ourselves for the rest of our lives. Because again, that's how we were trained to look for solutions. If I am in pain, I compare myself to others and then try to match myself to their behavior. That was childhood programming. That was childhood problem solving. So it's always going to be there. So now as an adult, we can ask ourselves these more complex questions. What's actually hurting? What do I actually need? What would actually serve me? Could I follow them? Is it really that, right? And then it's like what I talked about in last week's video. Is it really that I am in pain because I'm not good enough? Is that actually true? Or is my pain coming from some other thing? Right? Because most of us, again, are constantly triggered into feeling bad about ourselves and then comparing ourselves. When we are in legitimate pain, we don't know how to identify and we don't know how to deal with. We're blaming ourselves for our pain, saying it's because I'm not living up to expectation. Because again, that's what we perceived to be true in childhood. Every time we were in pain, we thought the only reason that could be happening is because I'm not living up to expectation. And the reason that would cause pain is because caregivers who can perfectly provide for me aren't. And the only reason they wouldn't is because I am failing. But in real reality, that's not true. We will all have pain that has nothing to do with us living up to expectation of other people. So we have to start to say, okay, there's more here. If I am in pain, it's not because I'm failing to live up to expectation. What is it really? It's not because I'm being rejected or I'm not good enough. Where is the pain actually coming from? And what is the real solution to the pain? Okay? Okay. So hopefully that was good. Comparison is always going to be a thing we do. So ask yourself why you're doing it in terms of how you think it's going to help you. And is your pain really because you're not living up to expectation, or is it for some other reason? All right? Okay. Come join the mystery school if you want more on this. If you like this kind of material, this is what we do in the school. We deprogram and reprogram. I will see you in a week or so. And until then, you are awesome. Have a great day, night, week, month, whenever I see you next. You are good enough. It's okay that you compare yourself. Let's work with it. Okay? Okay. Bye.